Hello. Well, thank you so much for having me today. Actually, this whole past couple days, exploring the why of J&J, I've been fully inspired this entire 2 days. Building the bikes and just seeing those beautiful faces sitting on the stage, it's an honor to be in a room full of people committed to purpose, committed to making a difference. And as you probably know, most companies aren't like that. J&J is unique, way ahead of the curve, 70 years ago, writing the credo. And most companies are just now getting around to the idea of purpose, the idea of sustainability, the idea of being a force for good in the world. It's just like occurred to them. You guys have beat them by 70 years, so congratulations. So today, we're going to talk about the science, history, and practice of purpose. So we're going to really drill deep into what it means to have purpose, to live it, to take it into our work, into our communities and families. So just like all the amazing presenters before, purpose is an inside job, inside out. And so it's important that you guys know who I am a little bit. I know I had a very lovely introduction. But I live in Berkeley, California, a place where everybody's exploring their purpose. Everyone wants to be fully alive, so I get to swim in purpose all day. It's really lovely. But it wasn't always that way. I spent the first quarter century of my life without purpose or without any kind of idea of what it could mean for me. I was raised to be a Chicago man of industry, to be an investment banker. So that's what I did. I did investment banking and worked in Silicon Valley, venture capital. And I noticed something was really off. I noticed it all along, actually. Because like you all, I don't think anyone here is really an investment banker, right? We're all artists, we're lovers, we're teachers. In my case, I'm a huge nature addict. I love to be outside all the time, and that did not lend itself well to 80 hours a week doing Microsoft Excel. And I noticed that I had essentially grown into a version of myself, or a version of somebody else, really. An alternate, false, inauthentic life. So I had a real hunger for purpose, like really wanting to understand what it was I'm supposed to do here. So that's when I began my journey. It was like smack dab in the middle of my MBA program, and I'm just exploding with existential thoughts, like, what am I doing here? Like, looking at the idea of what social enterprise is, looking at the idea of sustainability and creating a world that we actually want to leave to our children. And so I began my journey. And 3 years ago, I had the moment where I was coached through about 6 months of intensive purpose discovery work. And my life has been completely amazing ever since that moment. Since just knowing at a deep level who I always was for that first 25 years and seeing that I'd grown into a different version of that. And so I have been a global purpose advocate. It is the greatest drug on the planet, and I want everyone to take their first hit for free. And I assume the HPI is giving you a lot of that. I haven't explored it myself, but I know that for Rodrigo, it was very pivotal. He had a purpose moment where the idea and concept of legacy comes up. Because at this point, you all are successful. You have all the American dream things. But you wouldn't still be here if that was enough, right? You want more. We all do. We want to be well compensated, happy, healthy, and have our lives mean something. So my promise to you over the next 40, 50 minutes is to deliver you an understanding, a scientifically informed understanding of what purpose is, so that you yourself can take this idea, this inspiring possibility into your lives, into your companies, into your working teams, and deepen your commitment to living purpose in the world. But I have a question for you. What would it be like if everyone was turned on? If everybody knew deeply who they were, what would that be like? If everyone was doing the job they were meant to do, was living their values without constraint, showing up as their whole self at work, as goofy and silly and quirky as we all are, and creating the world that we all hold dear in our hearts. So that's my question for you to kind of hold. What would 7 billion people create if they all knew their life's purpose? So let's get into it. Let's get into the nitty-gritty specifics of this word purpose. It's been talked a lot about, and I really love the Rich's presentation exploring kind of the things that we value in our idols or our heroes. But there's a million different ways to define purpose. Each of you probably has a different word for it, ethics, morals, vision, intuition. But it really comes down to three things, these kind of three legs of the purpose stool. Being, like who we are, our essence, our values, how our closest friends, family members would describe us. These are the things that are just kind of immutable, these things that just were here when we're born and they're going to be there right before we die. And then the second piece is slightly more active, and that is our talents, our gifts. Like, what is it that we actually love to do? What brings us alive? So for me, it's writing, it's talking, it's coaching, it's getting to talk with inspiring folks who are living their purpose. I mean, I forget about myself in those moments, and we all have those. And the third piece, probably one we're all familiar with, given that we're in a business setting, is mission. So what are we achieving? Hopefully, it is much more than quarterly profits. And with the credo, that's actually guaranteed. So, the mission, or a SMART goal, is something that does expire. We accomplish it. So Gandhi liberated India. And then he had to go back to the well, go back to his soul, his heart. So, all right, what's next? Create a peaceful, unified India. So we all do that. We all get the opportunity to achieve with our purpose and then live it out in the world. So let's get into the basics. This idea of why has been up for us. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we sitting here? We all want more purpose. We all want more impact. We all want the next 28 million, Rodrigo. Let's get them. And so the way that we hold it in a corporate versus kind of personal setting is that the vision that we're stepping into, getting the next 28 million, a world where everyone has affordable access to important health care, is the same thing as our personal purpose. We all hold this vision, this way that we see the world that could be better, because we all know it could be a lot better. It's pretty good for us in this room. It's not so good where I'm from. I live in one of the world's most economically unequal places, and I see people suffering every day. And so I hold, and I hope you all hold, a vision that is bigger, that is better, a deeper why. So another important way to explore this idea of purpose is kind of to go into our personal psychologies. So I'm going to introduce this distinction, ego versus soul. And some of you probably know what we're talking about, but the quick and dirty is we're all born as pure, loving, creative, exploring souls. And then a bunch of stuff happens to us. We get injured. Mom didn't come to the crib fast enough. Dad was late to my soccer practice. And we make all these decisions, and we say, oh, therefore dad is this way, or men are this way, or mom is this way, or the world out there is scary, and we make all these judgments that Rich was talking about, these filters. So we build all these filters to keep us safe. So that's what the ego does. It's like this circle of sentrymen who say, stay away, you will not hurt me. And it's a very useful function, and we need it, especially in adolescence and as they're teens. But then it starts to get in the way, because if nothing's getting in, nothing's also getting out. We're not living our soul. We're not living our credo. We're not living our passion and purpose in the world. We're essentially living our ego. We're living this kind of left side brain. So purpose discovery work, the quick and dirty of it, is pulling apart the ego, pushing Humpty Dumpty off the ledge, finding out the real thing inside, and then reconstructing the ego around our soul, our purpose. So purpose, like I said, has these three parts. The first part, that essence, is static. That is something that is always about, that we're always about, that we're always expressing. The next two pieces are evolutionary. So we have to go back to the well, just like Gandhi, every 3 months, at least every 3 months, rewrite our purpose statement, And I really would encourage Johnson & Johnson to rewrite the credo. It's great as it is, but couldn't it be better? Couldn't it be bigger? Couldn't it be more inspiring? Couldn't it talk about ecological sustainability? Leaving a better world? I think it could, but I think it's awesome as it is. And the last piece is that we've all been living our life's purpose. So even though we might not be aware of it, everything that we do informs who we are, informs what we get good at, what we care about, what transforms us, what delights us. So I know it sounds like this big, scary, new agey word, but it's really just, that's who we are. We are purposeful individuals. And we can make a choice, and that choice is to live in explicit relationship to purpose. Doing the HPI, going deep into our egos, pulling it apart, listening to soul, and saying, from this moment forward, I'm stepping this way. One of the primary things that distinguishes somebody who lives in this explicit relationship is they know what it costs to not do it. They know what is the probable, almost likely future. Like, what is my life going to look like if I don't live my purpose? So to keep going on this Matrix theme that Rich was talking about, there's a moment in the Matrix where Neo is about to get out of the car right at the beginning. And Trinity says, you know where that road leads. Like, if you go back to the Matrix, good luck. You're going to die a boring, forgettable life. No, you're not going to be alive. You're not going to have your purpose. You're not going to have risked. You're not going to have lived. It will be as if you were never here. And this brings us back to the legacy, because none of us want to go to the grave saying we didn't give our all, that we didn't leave it all out on the field. We all want to say, you know what? I looked at this massive challenge. I held my vision in my hand, and maybe I only accomplished 20% of the vision. That's better than zero. The world's better off. Our kids are going to be happier, healthier, if we try, if we step into it and say, I'm creating this world. So not only is purpose all those things, it is also the key to everything good in the world. It is the good life embodied. It is, and I'm going to present this in a second, the scientific research behind this, is the key to a long, vibrant, healthy life, to fulfilling romantic partnerships, and claiming your role in creating the world. So we all have a role to play, and all of you are playing it. But to actually step into it, say, I hold this vision, and here's the role I play. So to distinguish what a lot of us from the business world do every day, all the kind of left brain stuff, it's important to see how purpose is different, but not better, although I think it's the bee's knees. It is very much complementary. It makes us whole. And so we have this constant focus on the whole, on the why. What is the nature of reality? What is the nature of our purpose? And why are we doing what we're doing? Is this the best way to make sure our purpose actually succeeds? As it's been mentioned, it is very much an organic, inside-out, process-driven thing where we're always going back, asking the questions, am I serving my purpose? The beautiful thing about it is that it is an emancipation. So in normal business, we're pretty opportunist. We're like, oh, look at the market, look at competitors, look at customer feedback, and say, okay, yeah, we can go make some money selling this thing or that thing. Whereas purpose frees you from that. It is literally the final emancipation, the highest, most free you could possibly be, because you actually don't care. You don't care where those opportunities are. There's only one thing you need to do right now, and that is purpose. That is the next action that is going to advance your living your purpose in the world. And there are lots of examples of people who do this. These are just two of the more recognizable versions. But what distinguishes these entrepreneurs is that they said no to basically everything. They all had a very, very deep sense of self-awareness, a deep sense of world awareness, and they said, it should be this way. So follow me. We're driving the bus, come with me. And what that allowed them to do was focus. The reason the iPhone is so beautiful is not because it does everything. It does a few things with exquisite detail, with artistry. It is very much a function of what it isn't. If anyone's ever had a Windows phone or an Android phone, you know what I'm talking about. These things that try to be everything. So this is an example how purpose actually drives and informs innovative, revolutionary business ideas. Oop. So many of you guys might know this gentleman. I'm going to try my best to not butcher his name. His name is Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And he's a Hungarian psychologist who wrote this book called Flow that studied what it means to have happiness, basically. It's called the Psychology of Optimal Experience. The study wrapped the globe. It was 10 years long. And so one of the things that he's been bringing into the business world is this idea that we cannot sell anything to anybody under any guise unless we know who we are. That vision is the fruit and the privilege of self-awareness. So if we know who we are, what we're committed to, that is what allows us to connect with our customers. That is what allows us to innovate the next significant product development feature. And that is what allows people to say, yeah, I want to go work with that person. You know, he says no a lot, or she says no a lot, but she really knows what she wants. Like this is somebody who's not going to hem and haw and give me soft yeses. They're like, yes, no, yes, no. And that's what we all want, just like children. We need boundaries. Can I do that? No. So I'm about to give you a bunch of very, very selfish reasons to follow us down the road of purpose. And they're very good reasons. And so over the last 30 years, a trove of research has come out that has correlated living your life's purpose with everything else, with everything that we hold dear in our wisdom traditions, in our societies, in our families. So the big one is we get to live a lot longer. There's research that says that if we have an explicit relationship to our life's purpose, we live 7 years longer. It reduces our mortality rates. And the idea here is that when we are living our purpose, we're no longer in this place of choosing things that are unhealthy for us. We're choosing the right relationships. Anyone here been in a bad marriage? I have. I know what that's like. So we're choosing the right relationships. We're choosing the right jobs. We're choosing the right friends. And so we're creating these optimal contexts, these optimal circumstances for our lives. So we're not wishing we were somebody else. We're not numbing ourselves out with vice and media because we know who we are. So the idea here is that we're not producing as much cortisol, which is what degrades our tissues, ages us, and eventually causes organ failure and a death premature by 7 years. Purpose is also brain insurance. If you want to enjoy those 7 years, purpose will help a lot. So it's been linked with reduced rates of Alzheimer's, stroke, depression, and most importantly, it makes it fun. We get to actually learn twice as much every day when we have purpose, because we're not just struggling to we're not shuffling through the world. We know where we're going. We're curious. Like we're excited to learn the next thing that has to do with our purpose, our impact, our why, how we're going to achieve the change that we all deeply believe in. So if you like learning, which I assume you all must because you got here to this room, purpose is a great way to keep that going. Also, it's great for your ticker. So those extra 7 years will be more vibrant. You're not going to be wheezing and coughing and lacking energy in any way throughout your old age. Now, this is something that's near and dear to me because I've seen the effect, I've felt the effect of a purposeless marriage. I've also felt the effect of a purposeful partnership. And they are night and day, night and day. So the idea here is that when we know who we are at our deepest level, we know where we're driving the bus, we're going this way. And it doesn't matter if anyone comes with us. I mean, we want that, but that bus it's going. Like that partnership has got to conform to that direction. And so when two people come together, like, I'm going this way, I'm going that way, yeah, looks pretty close. I think we should carpool. Let's go together. As opposed to when there's no purpose involved, it's what's really getting married? If you don't know your soul, what's getting married? It's the ego structure. It's the fears, the desires, the reactions, the parental narratives, the social norms, all the fantasies about what marriage and partnership and family are. It's just this giant, war, basically. The Zen philosopher Alan Watts famously said, "With whom are you in love against?" And I know what that's like. Which brings us to, the last piece of the credo here. Purpose has been correlated with virtually every significant financial thing that matters, everything that we track and measure. It's correlated with profitability. You're 4 times likely to be engaged at work if you have purpose. And as we know, this newer generation is demanding it. They're saying it's not enough to be paid. It's not enough to have a prestigious job. I actually need to be self-expressed. I need to be helping you drive a vision that I believe in. And so it becomes this HR strategy. And you can't sell what you don't have, right? So if you're recruiting, you're trying to get the best talent, you got to have a vision that you're selling. Like that credo has got to be like honey off your tongue. One of the things that I love about this is that regardless of how much we make, more is generally better. But people who have purpose feel wealthy. They're not asking, where's the next trinket? Where's the next job? Where's the next promotion? Where's the next thing that I need to get because I don't have enough? They're not in that ball game at all. They're saying, this is pretty good. I like where I'm going, but I'm grateful. I'm wealthy. So this concludes the fun part of our evening. Because this isn't the world we live in. This is what science says what we should be doing. We should be living purposefully. Our shareholders do want us, they want all this stuff. But we don't live in this world. Again, J&J is different, very much ahead of the game. So we actually live in a poverty of purpose. We are a species that almost uniformly doesn't know who it is. 87% of us show up collecting paychecks, waiting for the weekend. 80% of our bosses have no idea who they are. And so what does that mean? What's the consequence of there not being purpose at work? What's the consequence of there not being purpose in our governments? How is the world right now? Are we better off? And there are lots of costs, and I promised that I would not belabor how terrible the world is, but one of the ways that always gets me is animals, and how much I love my own pets, and how much I absolutely enjoy being in nature and seeing amazing wildlife do their thing, and just observing and hypothesizing and just seeing them do their thing. But unfortunately, over the last 40 years of purposeless, mindless consumerism, carbon fuels, yada, yada, you guys know the list, we've lost half. How long till we lose the other half? 20? 10? Unfortunately, our governments are really behind the ball. And I'm not going to sit around and wait for my country's government to lead. I'm not going to wait for Russia or China or India to get ahead of this, because I personally believe it's got to come from each of us. Each of us need to step into this purpose, into creating the world we want. Because if we wait, we don't have the luxury we had 20, 30 years ago before we knew all this stuff. So one of the things that this dire situation has on us as a species is that we feel disconnected. We feel, wow, there's all these terrible things in the world. I have no power. All the dreams I've been sold have been reduced to rubble. Time and governments haven't given us this noble cause. We don't have to go fight the Nazis. We don't have to free ourselves from economic oppression like we did during the Depression. Our war is spiritual. It is the inside path. Our war is figuring out who we are and taking that vision into the world. And so, if we don't create systems that allow that, if we don't create a business, a life, a government, a species that allows each of us to go within and live our life's purpose, we aren't going to have very much fun. So recently, NASA and the United Nations issued reports saying that human civilization will collapse in approximately 15 years. And all this research, you're going to get all the notations. For all you scientists out there, this is real. So it looks pretty dire. A world without purpose, a world without each of us living our purpose is going to be a very short world. And if you're like me, you don't want to see it go away. You love your kids. You love your animals. You love human culture, the richness and diversity, the Amazon. I mean, you love all that stuff. And there's a lot that we can do. And it starts with a revolution. This is an interior revolution where we take purpose into our own lives and start to recraft the world with who we are at our deepest level. We begin to actually do it right now. And there is a revolution afoot, mind you. I'm not announcing it. This has been happening. Purpose has been correlated with essentially creating this better world. It's making us more tolerant. It's creating a more equal society. It's making us more giving. And it's actually creating a youth culture that is inspiring. It's leading kids to be happy once they know that their parents see that they have value, that they have a purpose too. It's allowing those very kids to get excited about going to school. Does anyone here have kids not excited about going to school? Raise your hand. Sprinkle a little bit of purpose on them. As I mentioned, this revolution is happening. I remember when I went to business school, there was no such thing as sustainability. It was like a foreign word. And now it's all the rage. It is tearing through campuses, tearing through our media organizations, and it's infecting the consumer population. Europe is way ahead of the United States, of course. And this is actually now real business opportunity. These are people who vote with their values, live their purpose every time they get out their wallet. Like, I don't think I'm going to give money to Coca-Cola today or Nestle. I'm going to give my money to Patagonia or to Johnson & Johnson or to Whole Foods. So this is happening. This is very much happening at the consumer level. And it's part of a much, much broader trend. So we're going to back up a little bit here and talk about the evolution of capitalism. Like, how did we get here? So the very first piece, as we all know, Adam Smith awakened the power and potential of the entrepreneur. He said, if you go out and start your own business, you're going to have a better life. You're going to have more control, more self-determination, unlimited upside. You'll be an entrepreneur. And that was all fine and good until we started building factories and working people 100 hours a week, paying them nothing, or even not hiring them or discriminating based on their gender or their race. So we decided, capitalism isn't good enough on its own. We need to measure other types of capital. We need to measure human dignity. And this was essentially the labor socialist revolutions of the 1800s. We said it is important not just to have profit, but that we do it with our heads held up, that we sleep at night, that we know that we're giving people an honest, fair wage for 40 hours a week that allows them to give to their families, give to their communities, be active members of a democratic society. So the third piece, we kind of already went over this, but that launched in the middle of the last century. So 1962, a book was written by Rachel Carson that for the very first time exposed what was actually happening to our ecology. It's called Silent Spring. And it showed that essentially the way of doing business in this resource-intensive, carbon-driven economy was destroying our planet, destroying the ability for humanity to survive. So we said, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. Let's start to measure this. Let's start to regulate it. We We now have environmental protection agencies, cap and trade. There's a bunch of things. Now we're measuring ecological capital. We say it's very important. But as we just saw, time is of the essence. So any one of these battles are fine on their own. Like, it's a great thing to care about the environment, to work for an NGO. It's a great thing to work on social justice issues, to improve human capital. It's a great thing to empower entrepreneurship. But why? Because there's only one thing each of us need to be doing right now. And that's our soul, our purpose. So purpose kind of unites all of these waves. It is the fourth wave of capital that unlocks the psychological, spiritual, creative potential in all of us to say, I'm in. I'm a player. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to address all of these issues and to create a world that I want to leave for my kids. So I want to go back to this quote here. Because as leaders, if we're going to ride this wave and not be laughed at by our kids, maybe even derided, and not be disrespected by our more junior team members, we've got to know it. You can't fake this one. This isn't about taking a workshop. This is about doing the intensive work to go within, pulling apart our egos, talking to soul, and living our purpose in the world. So all the heavy stuff is done, I promise. No more fire and brimstone. Now I want to share what it's actually like. What is the emotional experience of going through a purpose discovery process? Like, what do you get out of it? Because I can imagine if you've never done this kind of work, it sounds kind of scary. Like, ooh, this sounds weird. I don't want to do it. Go away. So the first one is maybe one some of you are having right now or have had over the last few weeks, is that purpose is a thing. It is actual reality backed by science, not only in what it does, but in how you get to it. There's a scientifically validated way to do this. Ways that we've explored using Western psychology, how we actually get to that part of us that is most true, our essence, our soul. So for me, I was just coming out of my marriage, and after I'd kind of looked at my own issues in that, my therapist said to me, he's like, well, do you know your purpose? And I said, no, there is no such thing. I was really deep into Zen philosophy and spiritual nihilism. I was only thinking about meditating and enlightenment, and purpose is irrelevant. I'm just going to leave this whole chaotic nonsense of the physical world and just kind of be one with the divine. And in 5 minutes, he convinced me otherwise. He told me about Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who fought for suffrage, for rights for women to vote. He told me about Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. He told me about all these people who, yes, also have a very deep spiritual connection, but live their purpose. They take the descendant path and bring the divine here on earth, make it better, create the world in God's image. So that was the first one. I was like, wow, yes, let's do this. I'll give you my money. I'll give you 6 months. Even if there's only a 1% chance, I'm ready. So the second ecstasy is that psychological unpacking. I remember it so distinctly. I'd completed the last of the exercises, and it was just like I felt light. Like I'd just shaken off like baked mud or something. And I had this sense that I was super tall. I'm not short, but I had a sense I was really tall, like 10 feet tall. And that I was like kind of stomping on the ground like a god or something. And it was that feeling of possibility. That all the stuff that was keeping me small, all the fears, the limiting beliefs, everything from my ego structure, that kept me from living for the first quarter of a century, were no longer there. Or at least I could see them. I took them out of the attic, sat them down in the living room, and met them, interviewed them, negotiated with them, and told them to step aside so I could talk to my soul. And that brings us to the third one. Our soul access, the actual discovery. So, I was basically 6 months into this process. That morning, was doing my purpose discovery exercises. I was like, I got to take a break. So, went to yoga class, set my intention for the class to talk to my soul, to have purpose discovery conversation with myself. Had a lovely class, and decided to treat myself to a massage. It was right there on that massage table that my purpose was revealed. It was visual, and it took every ounce of will to not jump up off the table and run out the door and start it. But that's basically what I did. As soon as it was over, went home, registered the URL for Everyone. Month later, quit my job. Month later, left a relationship, and just was off to the races. I was on fire. And I had this experience for probably 2 months where I was sleeping like 3 hours a day, 10 feet tall, super excited, working my tail off. And I had realized, okay, this isn't sustainable. So I worked with some Chinese medicine folks and kind of brought it down from like a Red Bull vodka to more like a single malt scotch. It was pretty crazy for a while. And so I've been able to sustain this feeling. I can still have it. I can still feel that moment. And in the subsequent moments, because my purpose, like I said, is evolutionary. It changes as I accomplish things and recognize new skills. I've got a newer, bigger purpose in the world. And this brings us to the fourth one, is the gratification of success, of speaking authentically, living authentically, and actually seeing it being well received. So when I started to get press and media attention for my company and started to land bigger and bigger clients, and it felt, I was like, wow, this is really happening. This is not just the new age stuff. This is real. Like, I don't need to have faith anymore. I still do, but I don't have to take my own purpose self-talk as the only validation, even though it still is. But it was really nice to get that validation. So this brings us into the advanced levels of purpose. So now we know what it is, what it does for ourselves, what it does for our companies, what it can do for J&J, what it has to do for our species. What does it now mean? What is the emotional response behind purpose? So what I mean here is that purpose is now no longer just a selfish endeavor. Like, it's not just about us being happier or more excited about our lives or thinner and better relationships or better careers. It is now our response to the world. So purpose has this holistic expression. And again, I was really happy to hear Rich talk about Ken Wilber. He's basically the best author if you want to think about holism, in my judgment. And so you can't live purpose with blinders on. You actually have to understand the world in a very comprehensive way. You need to have an inch-deep, mile-wide understanding of reality. So that means understanding politics, economics, psychology, philosophy, sociology. It means understanding all of our major issues around economic exploitation, around racism, around sexism. There's just a gazillion issues out there that are necessary to have a holistically informed worldview. Because if you don't have that, what is your purpose or response to? So the way I think about it is, purpose is, yes, part compass. It is this thing that shows us our true north. But if we don't have a map, what good is it? So if our map only extends to the edge of the sidewalk, yeah, great. We're going to walk around in circles like this all the time. Purpose, purpose, purpose. But if it incorporates the whole of reality, then we can have a big life. Then it can actually be helpful and generative and move our species forward. So this is kind of pointing to this idea that our purpose is a bridge between our soul and the world. So purpose is this tension. We say, I'm holding this vision for the world over here. Here's where I'm at right now, and I'm going to keep tightening that distance. I'm going to allow other people to kind of come meet me, walk over this bridge and say, we're creating this world together. It starts here in my heart. It starts there in your heart. And the result, the unexpected result, and I probably should put this as one of the other ecstasies, is that purpose has yielded enormous self-acceptance, self-compassion, self-love. Because I, like everyone else who does this work, dug through all of my fears, my whole ego structure, and I got to hold it tenderly. All the stuff I was afraid of anyone finding out about me, I could now love that. Love the ways that I was deceitful, lacking integrity. Love the ways that I was weak, hedonistic, mean. I could hold myself my entire journey because I understood where it led me. I understood that this process got me to this place of being a force for good. And so it is, as the Buddhists say, the highest form of self-love. The highest form of love is self-love, where once we understand ourselves, can accept all of our imperfections, all the ways that the fairy tale didn't work, we've won. Because we essentially become our primary love relationship. We become much more committed to living truthfully than anything else. Much more committed, potentially even to life. As you see a lot of folks right now giving their blood and their lives right now to create a better world. Protests and riots all over the place. So, like I said, that also empowers us to be excellent partners, because if we love ourselves more than we love our partner, we're going to be a much better partner, because we're not coming to that relationship from need. We're coming to that relationship from want, from love, from self-expression. Now, this brings us to the last piece of the Purpose 201, and that is this idea of legacy. That every moment is full. It's full of the self-love, full of knowing that each breath we take, we get closer to the vision. And it's fine. We can die today. We can absolutely say this was a journey well lived. It's full and complete as it is. But it bears the burden. It bears the burden with each breath to evolve, to achieve, to take our purpose into the world, to recraft it in our vision. So again, now that we've got a deeper understanding, what does the world look like with 7 billion people living their purpose? If people are relating to each other from their heart, from empathy, if they're only speaking truth, if they're thinking about the future. This is the possibility I hold for myself and I hold for you, that we can do this together. It begins with purposeful organizations like this, and it's got to go elsewhere. So now that this possibility is slightly more in clearer view, how do you move forward? Like, what are the next steps? I mean, do you want to hands for more purpose in their lives? Anyone like some more purpose? 1 hand? 2 hands? 3? Okay. Great. So the first piece is assessment. It's doing a life audit. And that is really understanding the extent that purpose is already here. So as I mentioned, we're already living it, right? So once we understand where we are, then we understand kind of that 90% of navigation. And we then need to choose the path that we're going to take, whether that's getting a coach, whether that's doing a purpose program, whether it's doing the HPI, whether it's deepening your meditation practice, whether it's spending more time in nature, whatever it is, you're going to need to do things differently. And it definitely helps to have support. Someone, friend, confidant, coach, to keep you on the path of purpose. Then you get the joy of discovering it, along with the other 3 ecstasies, and you get to integrate it. It becomes part of who you are at your deepest level. You shift all your relationships. You shift your relationship to your health, to your body. You begin to choose career options, creative projects that are more aligned. And an exercise that I would recommend for all of you, if you've not done it or never heard of it, is take some of the company's time and rewrite the credo. Rewrite it in your own words. Fill in the blanks. What's missing in there? What can make that credo real for you here, right now? Because it's great. I mean, Robert Wood Johnson, brilliant man, so far ahead of his time. But that credo was written before climate change. That credo was written before the Cold War. That credo was written before the desperation of our planet, before we knew that we've lost half of the animal world. So what does it mean to you now? So that's where we kind of integrate it. We start to bring our purpose into work and choose and create new projects. So if you're like me, when you find your purpose, you are going to be 9 months pregnant, maybe 10 months pregnant. You are going to want to give birth immediately. You want this thing out of you into the world because yes, it's great, but it's way too good to just sit on forever. You got to get it out. So that's where we start to choose projects that allow us to serve our vision, that allow us to live organically, authentically, our purpose in the world. And then the last piece happens automatically, and that is being a stand for purpose, because you are now the embodiment of it. People are going to want what you have. Your coworkers are going to want some of that. If you're dating, your dating partners are going to want some of that. Your clients are going to want some of that. Your children are going to want some of that. So that's where you get a chance to guide other people in the way. Bring them along. So you're coming with me. I see a lot of potential in you. We're going to do some things you didn't think you could do. And that's where you become an activist, where you start to plant those ripples. You start to say, now I'm going to give away this gift that I've received. There we go. So I had hoped to have a physical gift to give you. Due to the late notice of my engagement, that wasn't possible. But what you are going to receive, either via email or in a physical copy, is a purpose manual. And inside that is going to be all the research that we just explored, the science of purpose, as well as a very quick assessment tool for understanding your own level of purpose right now, and then a 4-step purpose activation blueprint. The first step of that is a 30-minute guided purpose discovery exercise. So if you've never done this, you will have your purpose in 30 minutes. If you already have your purpose, you'll get a chance to update it. And then the next 3 steps are moving your purpose out into the world, taking you down that path that we just went on, and getting you to the place where you are creating, serving, and transforming the world with who you are. So that is all I have prepared for you today. I got a few moments to answer questions. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. Does anyone have a question on purpose? Yes? Yes.
I can see the path of getting to the purpose, and you said you're going to give us some tools.
Mm-hmm.
But where I'm struggling is, how do we peel off the ego
Mm-hmm.
and go in deep into that full discovery?
Yeah. So that piece is something that really can only be done with facilitation. So, because our egos by very nature do not want to be discovered. They like it how it is. They like this chaos of like shouting at each other. And so in order to actually peel back the layers, that's where somebody facilitates you through some written exercises basically, and sees where kind of your ego is not being fully explored, and gives you more and more tools so that by the time you're done, you've looked at all the internal voices in your head, and that you know for certain that whatever comes out next is not ego. And if it's not ego, soul. So yeah, facilitated methods, basically.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, I think I've got time for just 1 or 2 more. Come on. All right, well, thank you guys very much.
Innovation saya ada siya Hui. Hey! Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate it. it.
Thanks, Rodrigo.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.